for the opportunity that you've given us to get together, to share what it is, your plan and your purpose for us as parents. And we ask that you'll help us to have open hearts and attentive ears, Lord, and that we need to find some keys to help me make these children be exactly what you designed them to be. Thank you for your guidance. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, I'm going to preface the whole thing with this. Yes, I know a lot of your kids, so I'm not picking on any of your kids. Okay? Some of my examples may seem very similar, but what does the disclaimer on a murder show say? Does not have any, no actual people is this based on. So that's kind of my disclaimer, okay? My illustrations do not necessarily mean it's any of your kids, okay? We've been doing this for 50 years, so we have other church folks we can talk about from other churches that we've been to. I think that one of the things that, no, I know that one of the things that happens in this world today is that the devil would love to destroy Christians. And one of the best ways to destroy Christians, not only Christians, but society, is to destroy the family. And by destroying the family, what do we have then? What is the basis of life if we don't have a family? Okay? And as a parent, some of you chose to be a parent. You did it the way the Bible talks. You got married, you waited the appropriate amount of time, got your jobs all together, got your careers. Who am I talking about? You got married, and then you found out you're going to have a child shortly thereafter, right? And some of the folks that I know didn't quite plan it that way, so they just found out they were going to have a child and then went, oops, maybe we should get married, okay? It doesn't matter. Some of you might have been totally shocked that you were going to have a child, whether married or not married, okay? And so you might say, wait, this is a blessing I did not ask for. Well, you know what? God designed you to be the exact parents he wanted for the children you have. He knew your weaknesses, he knew your strengths. He knew your abilities, he knew your lack of ability. He knew the exact DNA that he wanted to have a child designed like your wonderful child. So it's not a mistake. Might have been in your mind, but not in his. Okay? Not always do we do it the right way, but God is a God that takes our mistakes, turns it around to something positive. I'm going to need a thing of water. That wonderful thyroid medicine I take dries out my mouth so badly if I talk more than a half a minute. So I'm at my half a minute. But anyhow, so no matter how you got here, you are a parent. And if you're a parent of more than one child, isn't it amazing how you learn on the first child, the second child comes along and you have to throw away all of the notes you had on the first one, because the second one's not anything like the first one. And if you really want to mess things up, have a third one.
Or even a fourth.
Yeah, or even a fourth. And you'll find out that none of them are quite the same. Yeah, who in the world?
No, I'm not.
7 kids. There goes your sanity and your wallet. Yeah. But anyhow, so we're gonna all resolve this right now.
All right.
You are a parent because God designed you to be the parent of the kids you have. Now, let me tell you this. No matter how wonderful or horrible your child is, you were given a perfect child. You really were. You were given the perfect child that God had planned and designed for you. Now, what you have done to that child might be something we need to talk about today, okay? Because children don't just happen. They're not like wolves that are raised by the environment. Well, they are raised up by the environment, but children are raised by the environment we set for them. So if you have a teenager who's a brat, pat yourself on the back, because that's what you created. Yeah. Isn't that harsh? But it's true. Now, most of us do the dumb things just because we don't know better. Okay? That's why you come to classes like this. So that you can go, oh, I wish I'd known that 15 years ago. I wish I would have known that 10 years ago. And for some of you who are just getting started out going, oh, I'm glad I heard this. Doesn't mean I'll do it, but at least I know now why he's going to be a mess. You know, or she. Okay? So the child that you have is the child that you have allowed. The discipline or the non-discipline in your environment has led to the type of children and their behavior that you have. Can everybody agree with that? Yes. Or go, ouch? Okay, yeah. Like I said, I wish we'd all been given instructions with each child. But then I know most of us. How many of you read your instructions when you got your new phone? No, you only read it. Only when we get in trouble do we read the instructions, okay? Or when we can't figure out why we have extra screws, do we figure out why we put it together wrong, right? She reads them for you? Yeah. Yeah, and so it'd be nice if we read the instructions first, and if we found out what God purposed and planned for us, we might do a whole lot better in this thing called parenting. Now, the one thing that's wonderful about parenting is that this job you only have for like 14 to 16 years, technically. Yeah. Okay, today we better go 24, because the average kid doesn't move out till 25 years old. Oh yeah. Morgan's going, no, please tell me that's not true. Used to be, see, we trained our kids so that when they turned 18, the day after graduation, they were gone. What happened? We made life too comfortable for them. They don't want to leave. If your child does not want to leave at 18 after they graduate, you blew it. Here's our job from God. This job that you have, and I say roughly 14 years, is because the first 6 months, it's pretty easy going. It's that next 14 years that are really important. And then by the time they get to be 16, 17, they have after-school sports, they have jobs, they have girlfriends, they have no time for us as parents, and they want no input in their lives. So you really have about 14 years to get their attention. Now, according to the scripture, your job, my job, is to teach them and train them and make them capable of living in this world. That's our job. So why, as parents, especially moms, why is it that we don't want to let them go? We're supposed to teach them how to live without us. That's our job, is to teach them to live without us. I was telling Joel, I remember a situation when our son got married. He and Trey got married at 20, and he was already on his own. He moved out the day after graduation. The last 6 months before he moved out, he had been buying furniture for his little apartment. His bedroom, I said, I don't care how much furniture you buy, but it's got to stay in your bedroom until you move out. You could barely get to his bed. So he was anxious to move out the day after graduation. When he got married, we were on a touring trip with a bunch of students, and he got sick. And so he's laying on this we're at this host home, and he's laying on this host home, and he's throwing up. And the host happened to be a friend of ours, and Mark went by, and he said, aren't you glad he's not your responsibility anymore? And I went, yes, I don't have to clean up his throw up. His wife does. Yay! You know, that's the way we should feel. We did a good job. We passed him off now. Let his new wife take care of him. You know, let them take care of each other. We did our job. Let's back off. All right. Now, in doing our job, there are a few things that we have to learn. And probably one of the toughest things is why God gave us this assignment. It's because He needed the world populated. He wants the world full of disciples. That's our job. To populate the world and then to create missionaries or disciples that follow after him, so that the kingdom of God grows. How are we doing in that category? Are you reproducing young disciples who are learning about God, wanting to serve God? Some of you, your children can't talk yet, so you don't know, but you know what I'm saying? That should be our goal, because God said that's what I want you to do. Now, part of the reason why he gave us these little personalities that he said they were perfect, and the reason why I say he says they're perfect is because God doesn't make junk. He doesn't make mistakes. So whatever child he gave you, he knew you were adequate to raise them the way he wanted them raised. Now, sometimes society works against us. No, let's say all the time society works against us. Sometimes just our lazy old attitude works against us. And then sometimes husband and wives have a hard time working together for the same purpose of raising children. None of these, husband and wives, because you're all here together. All right, so one of the things that we need to do, we have to learn to do, is discipline our children. Okay? We're going to train them and teach them. What's the difference between training and teaching? I like that. She said, one you spank a little bit, the other one you spank a lot. Yes, sometimes. What's the difference between teaching and training? Teaching is giving them instructions. Okay? Anybody give your kids instructions all day long? Mm-hmm. At what point do they quit listening to you? Immediately. Almost immediately, okay? So teaching doesn't do a whole lot. It really does not do a whole lot when we're talking about children. Therefore, the scripture says, if you train up a child in the way he should go, when he gets old, he'll not depart from it. What's that mean? It doesn't mean just give him information all the time. We call that lectures. They get that at school. And we know how much they learn at school. You know, so teaching them is so limited. Training them is where the hard work is at. Because what does it mean to train someone?
Be consistent.
Have to be consistent. What if you're training for the football team? You're doing it with them. No good coach would just leave his kids out there on the field to learn how to play football on their own, would they? They get out there and they show them the moves. They have somebody demonstrate it for them. They have somebody show them what they're supposed to be doing. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing as parents. We're supposed to train them by showing them. So if your children are not learning, maybe it's because you're not training, you're just teaching, which is another form of yelling. Okay? And yelling is just nothing more than teaching with a different volume. Yes. And children have the same thing as that little volume control that the husbands have. They can tune us out real quickly. But so when it comes to children, we're supposed to train them, which means you have to live the example that you're trying to get them to do, become, and be. How well are you doing in that area? Good days and learning days. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it should be some things like this. For instance, anybody in here teaching their children to lie? We try to be sneaky, you know, don't tell them when we're lying. Try to get away with it. Oh, isn't that kind of what they do? Yeah, we have to be careful. I remember listening to my mom and my grandma talk. When mom and grandma were together, they would talk about my other two aunts. And grandma was always on my mom's side. And then when mom wasn't there, and one of my aunts was there, my grandma was always on my aunt's side, and the other two were the bad guys. And this is a grandma who I love dearly, but she had no backbone. She just went with whoever because she was a peacekeeper. Whatever it took, she didn't want anybody mad at her. Okay? And so, technically what she was teaching us was what? Just get along at whatever cost. Any of us ever do that? Have your kids ever heard you say something like, well, you know what? When we go to the show tonight, you're going to be 10. because you can get in on half the cost.
I've not done that before. I told Christopher to do that one time. He's like, but I'm not.
Yeah, we wouldn't dare tell our kids to do that. You know why? Because one of them would go, "But I'm not," right to the clerk, you know. Yeah, we had very verbal kids.
Or, don't worry, mommy has some candy in her purse.
Yeah, yes.
Does it count if they assume, if daddies assumes your child is your
That's called lying by omission, I think. I don't know. But can you see how right there we're teaching our children to what? If it's going to benefit you, it's okay to not be totally honest. Ooh, that really kind of stinks, doesn't it? How about, has anybody ever taught your children to steal? There again, probably not on purpose. But what about something you find and you don't know who the owner is? I know when we found Olaf, our little dog, my grandkids are watching, and it's like they wanted the dog so badly, you know, they wanted us to keep Olaf, and I'm saying, wait a minute, we have to do this the right way. We have to look for posts to see if somebody's lost their dog. We have to do this, this, and this, you know, to see. And if after 7 days nobody has stepped forward to claim the dog, then we'll keep the dog. But I could have technically just kept the dog, right? But what would that have told my grandkids? That it's okay to take something. You just don't ask a lot of questions. I remember one time when Tiffany was probably about 12, 13, I went to Target, which I don't normally do anymore at all, but back in the day. I went to Target, and when I left there, I had gotten a whole bunch of things, and when I got there, I was walking out to the car, and I thought, that bill didn't sound right. So I'm going through my thing, and I went, oh, they didn't ring up this blouse. So I said to Tiffany, I said, okay, I got to take this blouse back in. I'll be right back. I go back in, take it to the service desk. They treated me like I had stole the shirt and was trying to return it for money. Because that's how often they get them returned like that. And I said, no, I don't want any of your money. I'm just telling you it wasn't rang up when I went through. I don't steal things, so here's the shirt back. Well, you're not going to get any money from us. I don't want your stupid. I finally left the shirt there and went, it's your shirt. I did not pay for it. I do not want it. And I left. And because, what does that teach our children? We try to be really honest. Now, there was one time when, I would like to say I do that all the time. See, I'm just telling you my really good behavior. Now I'm going to tell you, there was a time also when a particular business had overcharged me more than once, and I'd have to go back in and say, wait a minute, this was wrong, I got double billed. So this one time when they undercharged me, I looked at the bill and I thought, you know what, they have overcharged me enough, it's just their fault. They should get better employees. Wrong attitude. Really wrong attitude. See, I'm not perfect, anywhere near. But can you see where we do things that we don't even think about? How about, have any of you taught your children how to pout? Without even knowing it. Do you know what a pout looks like? I see some of this going on. Do you know what a pout looks like in an adult form? Kind of like a king in the Old Testament. Remember the king who wanted the guy's the farm behind his palace? And yeah, I know who it is.
I didn't, thanks, Pastor.
And I wasn't going into great detail. I just wanted them to say, I want that farm back there because the vegetation's great. You know, the vegetables are awesome. And so he said, go get it for me. He told the servants, go get me that farm. And they come back and said, the guy doesn't want to sell. And he said, no, go get the farm. Pay him twice as much. No, he doesn't want to sell. So then this grown adult threw a childlike tantrum. He's the king of a nation. He goes up to his bedroom. This is a little paraphrase, but it's in there. Okay? He goes up to his palace's bedroom and he throws himself on the bed, looks toward the wall, and refuses to eat and refuses to talk to anyone. Is that a 3-year-old pout in the form of an adult? Anybody? Don't even say it. And it wasn't until his wife came in there and said, "Oh, baby, I'm sorry that guy made you mad. I'll take care of it for you." Wonder where our kids learn to do that. Pout until they get their way. Wonder where they learned that. See, we are training our kids all the time. We really are. Let's see. We talked about lying and stealing and pouting. Another form of pouting or showing temper, which I know none of you have ever done this, and therefore your children should never do this. Anybody ever stomped out of a room and slammed a door? Okay. Anybody ever put their fist through the wall? I would never do that because I would be sure I'd be the one who'd hit the stud. You know, so yeah, I would never try that. Oh, hit that stud. That was, you had to go a long way for that one. That was good. We see where some of you gentlemen think. Okay, missed that. Sorry, gentlemen.
Babe, when I pouted, I just kept quiet and walked away.
That was going to be my next one. Yes. How many of you taught your children how to pout by the silent treatment?
One more time and you're gonna have to go get the pizza.
The,
Until there's no other words.
yes.
I can't stand
The silent treatment is one of the loudest, most deafening pout ever.
Wait, is this from our spouse or from our children?
Yes.
Yes to both.
Yes. Yes, yes.
The second one I'm okay with.
Yeah, it would be nice if our kids would not talk to us, right? And just about. Yes, yes. No, but the silent treatment, see, and I won't tell you that Pastor used to do this, and I won't tell you that he was pretty self-righteous about his way of pouting, because I'm a hollerer, and when I'm upset, I'm like a firecracker. I explode, but then it's all over with. Yeah, pieces are everywhere. You don't want to stand close, okay, when I explode. But anyhow, it's over relatively quickly, and I always clean up my own mess, okay? But when somebody would, when we were first married, he was so maddening because you can't argue with somebody who won't argue. And so he would give me this silent treatment and then act arrogant, like he was taking the high road. And it's like, no, that is just as stinky as hollering. Took me a long time to get him convinced that this is wrong behavior too. And with children, when they learn to give you the silent treatment, teenagers are really good about this. When they give you the silent treatment, what they're really saying is, I can do this until you apologize. I will ignore you. You will get short snippet answers from me, Mom and Dad, until I feel good and ready to warm back up.
They better not hold the breath.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you see where our kids learned it? Yeah. Have you ever had long bouts of silence in your house? Our kids always knew when there was something going on with Dad, because they would say, "What's up with Dad? He's not talking to anyone." You didn't know that? Yeah, too busy being silent.
Explain long, is that longer than 3 days or what?
Yeah. You know, he can go 2 weeks and not talk to me. Not anymore. He used to. Now we get it. We're good at, we have learned how to argue really well. We don't argue anymore. We just discuss loudly. But it gets settled a whole lot more quickly than it used to. Because he doesn't pout and I don't pout in our own separate ways. Because it doesn't benefit anybody. But we teach our children to do it. and then we wonder why they do this. It's because they've learned from us. Anybody else have a confession they want to make right now? Now's a good time. Oh, you're going to make a confession for him? I like that. I'm the only one who gets to confess for him.
I'm a silent treatment person and trying to get better, okay. But my kids can always sense when there's something wrong with me because I get real quiet and I just change from like bubbly Jen, you know, in my normal routine to where I'll just be like super quiet. And my kids, I can tell they're affected by it, so I'm trying not to be like that.
I did get the Jennifer silent treatment one time.
Yeah, it's not fun, is it?
I did. I did. And I knew immediately something was wrong. I had done something. And I had. But once I apologized, we were cool. But, yeah. See, we just do these kind of, no, I'm just picking on you, Jennifer. We do these kind of things without even thinking about it. Where did we learn it from? Our parents? Our environment? Yeah. Anyone else got something to want to confess? Here's a good time. Ooh, there's a good one too.
So at least two of my kids do that.
Yes, yes. Anybody come back with real smart aleck answers?
What? No, not me.
We usually call it sounds so grown up to say, well, I'm just sarcastic, that's it. No, smart aleck answers are smart aleck answers. And they are for a reason. It's to get your point across without looking like you're trying to get your point across. We pretend like it's humor. Smart aleck answers are not humor. No, and they can be very cutting. They can be very harmful. They can hurt and cut deep. And you'd be surprised that once you get into that atmosphere, and when you're that type of person, you just say things without really thinking about it. So you could just lash out at everybody in your world and never know you offended them. And kids grow up with hurts and pains from things like that. That's why it's important that we watch our mouths, watch our conversation. Anybody ready to quit? Say, forget it, I signed up for the wrong thing. All right, shall we go on? So, we're going to talk about, now we understand that we're part of the problem. Okay, we're the first thing that needs to change. One of the other things that need to change when we're changing our environment for our kids is the best thing you can do for your kids is love their other parent. Moms and dads have got to show love in that home. That is the healthiest environment for any kid to be raised in. And if mom and dad can't do that, you've got problems right there. Now, does that mean that, well, if mom and dad fight all the time, it's probably better we get a divorce? No, just grow up and stop fighting. Because a divorce, nobody wins either. And the only people get hurt the most are the innocent ones, the kids. Because usually they end up losing dad, or they end up losing mom, or they eventually lose them both. Because mom and dad separate, dad gets a new wife, mom gets a new husband, and they're busy making their new lives, and the kids are caught in the middle. There are no winners. So no, divorce is not a good idea if all you do is fight. Grow up. Grow up. Stop fighting for your kids' sake. Learn to love each other. All right? That'll go a long way, too, in teaching your kids how to love. Now, when it comes to changing the environment of our home, we have to agree on a couple things. If you are in love with your mate, you have a loving environment for your kids to be raised in, then discipline should be no problem, right? Really? Yes, yes. And we know those fairy tales were only changed to good endings when Disney came along. Before, the fairy tales were evil. Yes, yes. Okay, so when we talk about discipline, there's a few things there are a few different degrees of discipline. First of all, there is correction. Okay? There is discipline, and then there's punishment. Those are three very different things. You correct children when it's something new to them. What do you do for a 2-year-old? Most of what you do is corrective discipline, right? Yeah, don't touch that. Don't do that. And some of the smart things that you do is when you're correcting, this is new behavior. This is something they've never been experiencing before because they're young. These are little kids that we're talking about, okay? And all along life, they have different stages where they are learning new things in every stage. And those new things that they encounter, you need to first of all see, is this something that needs to be corrected first? And then if it doesn't change their behavior, then we move on to discipline, which means we add a little degree of pain to it. And if they still don't get it, then that's when we move on to punishment. And we make the pain more painful. Okay? Everybody understand those 3 levels of correction? And that's just how God deals with us. And see, one of the things that we're teaching our children is how to grow up and live in the world, but how to grow up and live in God's world. Because children that are not disciplined will hate God. Why? Because God deals in correction, discipline, and punishment. And if you have taught your children that those 3 things are evil and bad, then what are they going to think about God? God is evil. God is mean. Anybody ever disciplined your child and had them say, "You're mean"? Yeah, then that means you did it right. You hate me. Oh, yes.
I hate you, I love you, and that's why I am.
No, you should have seen what I done to you if I really did hate you.
Yes.
Yeah. It would have gone from punishment to whipping. Oh, did you know there's a difference between spanking and whipping?
One is with a hand and one with a belt.
Not necessarily, but yes, kind of. Whipping is not a form of the 3 that we talked about. Whipping is something that you do to somebody who, like Jesus, was whipped. Like you whip a disobedient horse. Our children are not horses. Yeah, they don't get whipped. They get spanked with a rod. And that's why some people refuse to use a belt. Okay? And I'm all for whatever's handy. No, not a hanger. No. Not a shoe. Water hose. Who said water hose? A switch. Yeah. Farm kids have all been switched.
What about a paint stick?
A paint stick, if that's what you got handy, go for it. Yeah. Back scratcher. A wooden spoon is a good one.
When you've been warned a couple of times.
Yes. Okay. So we understand. First of all, with something new, a new thing that they're learning, you correct. Okay. And that's when you give them the stern warning. Okay. This is why you don't touch the hot stove, 2-year-old. It's because it will burn your hand. Okay? And so then tomorrow when that same rebellious little 2-year-old comes to touch the hot stove, then you grab their hand, maybe slap their hand and said, "Don't touch the hot stove." Then the really rebellious 2-year-old comes back the 3rd day and is going to touch the hot stove. That's when you step back and let them touch the hot stove. Now, you don't do it to where they're going to get hurt beyond. You still have to control the situation. So you wait until the oven's just hot enough to make them feel it without leaving welt, or 1st degree or 3rd degree burns. You wait until it's just hot enough and then you let them touch it and go, "See, I told you." So you went from correcting them to disciplining them, explaining to them, to, all right, here's the consequences of your choice. Okay? And something with obedience with children is that there are 3 steps that true obedience must involve. Number 1 is obedience. For it to truly be obedience means it has to be done immediately. Number 2 is it means it has to be done thoroughly. And number 3, it means it has to be done with a good attitude. Now, what does that mean broken down? Okay? When you have a 2-year-old, let's say Elliot is how old? 3. Okay. A 3-year-old has about a 3-second delay in their brain. You can say roughly a second per year, going backwards. And so he has about a 3-second delay in his brain. What do I mean by that? Not because he's slow. It means that mom says, Go pick up that toy you just threw. And he stands there for a minute trying to decide, first of all, am I going to obey? And then when he decides I probably should, okay, then he has to go, okay, what is that going to tell? It means, oh, this hand has to pick up that toy, and I have to get there from here, so it means I'm going to have to walk over there. He really has to make all of his motor skills, everything work. So it does take a few seconds for a toddler to make all of that happen. So you have to give them a few seconds, okay? But if they're 12 years old and you say, go pick that up that you just threw across the room, if it takes them 3 seconds, it should take you 2 seconds to get out your board and wallop them good, okay? Because that's not truly obedient. Okay, here's my real pet peeve. You ever been out? None of you do this, so I'm not picking on any of you, okay? You ever been out in public and you saw those, careful with your adjectives, Rose, saw those less than intelligent parents that are counting? I'm going to count to 10, and you better do what I just told you to. What child is going to move on 1 or 2 or 5? What is every child going to do? Wait till you get to 9.5, and then they'll move. So all you've managed to do is teach your children how to count to 10 really well.
Or test your batteries.
Yeah, or to test your patience too. Yeah, so this counting to 10 only makes parents look stupid. And if the public sees you as stupid, what do you think your 5-year-old sees you as? Duh, does mom really think I'm going to move on 2 or 3? Now, he may not say that, but he thinks that, and that's why he waits till 9.5 before he moves. And you can count to 3. It's the same principle. Yeah, it's the same principle. You just expect them to
Make my life harder.
yeah, you just expect them to move a little faster than. You're only going to count. You're only going to teach them to count to 3 that way. So, okay, so. yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait till I count to 100, and how many of us will be distracted before we get to 50? You know, move on to something else. Yeah, they'll count on that too. So, in order to be true obedience, it must be done quickly, according to their age. Okay, and it must be done completely, which means they have to understand what it is you're asking them to do. Elliot, you may have to say, pick up that toy over there. A 12-year-old, you can say, go pick it up. And they better know what you're talking about, right?
Even if they move as slow as a snail.
Even if they do. Oh, that then would not be immediate. So you got them to bust them on that. Yeah. Yeah. And so in order to be complete obedience, they have to do it quickly and thoroughly. So it means that they don't go over there and pick it up and lay it down on the table. Yeah. Or pick it up and lay it down someplace else. Or kick it somewhere else. No, it means they pick it up and put it wherever it's supposed to go. So it has to be done completely.
So this good attitude that you have for point 3, is that me having a good attitude or them having a good attitude?
Yes. Yes and yes. Okay. And then on number 3, having a good attitude means what? This one sometimes is the hard one. Having a good attitude means that they can't give you back talk. They can't give, and body language screams loudly. Yeah. Anybody ever have a child roll their eyes at you? Oh.
They didn't do it a second time though.
Yeah, yeah. We had a staff member at our church in St. Louis at a staff meeting, an adult, yes, who I brought to light something that had happened and needed to be changed so that this particular thing didn't happen again. So I stated it, and he full on, everybody in the room, everybody on the staff, saw him roll his eyeballs at me. I tell you what, I wanted to go over there and take him by his throat and strangle him to death. Partly because he's a grown adult and he's acting like a 5-year-old. But I didn't, because Pastor wouldn't have let me strangle him. But I did say this: did you really just roll your eyeballs at me? Man, did that room get silent really fast. But what do you think his kids were really good at doing?
Give them that same type
Mm-hmm.
of response.
Yep. Yep. And so a good attitude, that is not a good attitude. Okay?
After that third, if it's not a good attitude and their response is like,
Mhm.
or just like, not a good attitude.
Yes.
then, like,
How do you
how
get a
do
good
respond
attitude?
without like losing your patience?
Because since I've got a short fuse, and when I get an exhale or a body drag off the couch, like melting.
That's because they've seen you do that when Seth talks to you,
Am I
right?
supposed to do like a 0 to 100, like right then and there? And just,
Yeah.
Or go
Oh, you
repeat
better.
it again.
No. If they're old enough to know that that was bad communication that they just gave you, then they're old enough to be dealt with severely. Yeah. Like severely. Like, you know,
They can have
take
that
them.
attitude, then you just come up there and
It's too old.
How old is too old to spank? Well,
almost 13, but I still spank her.
as long as you can take them to the floor, go for it. No, no. Yeah. Yeah. If you can reach them, you can spank them, yeah. Okay, well, here's the idea of the baby elephant. When Raju, the elephant at the zoo in St. Louis, was born, we would take our kids to see Raju all the time. First of all, it was a free zoo, and Raju was the new baby elephant. And so you could see Raju out there playing in his little swimming pool they gave him, and you could see him splashing water. He loved to get water in his trunk and then go spray it on the old elephant, the old lady elephant, who then would turn around and give him attitude, you know. It was so much fun watching this little guy grow. Well, it wasn't very long, maybe 2-3 months old, that they started putting this little chain, like a dog chain, on his one hoof and tethering it to the ground. Now, the big elephants, and these are giant, we're talking, you know, full-grown tons of an elephant. The full-grown elephants all had the same sort of thing, only they had more like a log chain around their one foot and tethered to a spot, you know, in the ground, so that the elephants could only go so far when they were supposed to be contained in a certain area. Now, Raju, the little guy, first would try to tug at that little chain, and it wouldn't do any good. The old elephants, let me tell you a little secret just between me and you that they didn't know about. Those old elephants could have snapped those log chains like that. Why did they not do it? It's because they were trained when they were Raju's age that keeps you tethered to the ground here, and you're limited on what you can do. That's what we need to do with our children. If you start them out young enough to where you discipline them and they know you mean business and that you don't change your rules, you don't change the boundaries, if they know that you mean business, you are training them like the baby elephant. So that when they're, 5 foot tall, granted, all my kids were taller than me by the time they were teenagers. Okay, how can I get my 16-year-old son who's a head taller than me to be obedient? Because I trained him to respect mom. His dad reinforced it. You will respect your mom, you know. And so when you train them that way, you don't have to worry about how am I going to discipline them when they're 16, 17, 18 years old. Now, if you haven't done that and they're 10 and 12, you got your work cut out for you.
Okay, so now I'm trying to work my husband because he's not here. But he's not been perfect in the dad or husband things at the beginning.
Mhm.
So Emma and Lily kind of had that only mom as a discipline,
Uh-huh.
and he never backed up the whole "you're going to respect your mom," but he's been doing it the past couple of years, and I feel like they're having a struggle with it because when he's not home, they disrespect me, they don't listen to me, or I have to repeat myself and lose my mind and act like a crazy person. But then the moment he's home, I only got to say it once. Listen. So how do I?
How do you
instill
change
fear,
that?
but instill fear
Yeah,
without-
yeah. That's a difficult thing to do. because it should start out a little training. All of you dads, your responsibility by God is to be the head of that home. You are first responsible. You will be last responsible. You are responsible for what goes on in your home, guys. It's not just, oh, make a baby and then leave the training up to mom. And there are a lot of dads who have that attitude. You know, hey, I did my part, the kid got here. Now I'm doing my part, I'm bringing home a paycheck every week. That's it. No, when they stand before God as their judge, he's going to say, what'd you do with those wonderful kids I gave you? What'd you do with that wonderful home I gave you? You destroyed it because you refused to take leadership, okay? It's kind of like this with parents when fathers do not get involved. It's like if you're out here and you break the law and you get a ticket from the policeman here in town. When you get a ticket from the policeman, that policeman is just a person. That piece of paper is just a little piece of paper. So what makes it of any value is the fact that when you take that little piece of paper to the court, the judge backs up what the policeman said. And the judge says, now here is your penalty. What happens in society? Oh, that would be our societies. What happens in a society when the judges don't back up what the policeman did? When the policemen give out tickets, the young people go to jail? No, because they get before a judge and the judge drops the ball or doesn't bother to prosecute or whatever. What happens then to our young people? They have no respect for the police. That's what happens in a home. When dads do not back moms, it makes mom's authority laughed at and mocked at and ridiculed by the kids. Now, that's a tough one to solve by yourself, moms. It really is. Short of bringing that husband in for counseling, a lot of prayer. A lot of prayer and a lot of consistency is about the only thing that you can do. Anything to add to that?
Yeah,
How did I know you were going to say yes?
I remember when Ben was about, he was just getting ready to turn 13, and one night he wasn't hugging his mom goodnight, kissing her goodnight, and stuff. And Rose mentioned to me, I didn't notice it, but he would hug me, but not her. And so I went back to his bedroom night. I said, hey, I noticed, Bud, that you're not hugging mom goodnight or kissing her goodnight anymore. What's the deal? He said, Dad, I'm not a kid. I said, I'm not either. He said, well, you're her husband. I said, it's not a matter. You live in the house, just like me. It's a matter of respect. If I'm going to be late, I call her. If I'm not going to be in time for something, I call her. When I go to bed or she goes to bed, we kiss and we hug. It shows respect for the position in the home. And from that night on, he did that. In fact, he treated his sisters that way, and when he got married to Petrea, she wasn't sure if the marriage would last. I said, he's going to treat you like he treated his mother and his sisters. And she said, well, I love that, because he hugs them and kisses them, hello, goodbye, and that's still to this day how he treats her, and that's how his girls treat him. When it came to disrespecting her, he didn't obey her, and he talked flippant. I went in the house when I heard
Oh,
it. She
yes.
said,
This was
"Joel."
one night. I had told him to do something or told him he hadn't done something correctly, and I got attitude from him. And this was probably when he was 15.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And so he just reared up, and it was like, Ben was this mellow kid, and all of a sudden I saw him get, and he was just ready to lash back with something ugly, and Dad steps in the room right behind him.
They're practicing their manhood, and they're trying to emulate. They're trying to figure out who they are. And we came inside the house there, and I grabbed him by the throat and threw him up against the wall like a man. I said, I'll kill you. You never speak. Of course, I wouldn't kill him, and he knew that. And he knew that because of the way we relate. I said, listen, you will never talk to your mother that way. I mean, I raised my voice, scared the fire out of that kid, and he never talked back to her again. He never has. And absolutely necessary. One of the things that Proverbs 13 says, if a man does not discipline his son, he hates him. He hates him. It is love that brings the discipline. Hebrews 13 says, no discipline is pleasant. If you discipline your child misbehaves. Rose has always taught you have attitude children and action children.
Don't go there yet.
Okay?
We will.
And wow, and we had them. And what I have noticed through the years, a lot of dads are either way too severe, and they don't know how to communicate love and instruction.
So it's all discipline.
Yeah, and so it's all very fierce, and he just blows up. And it is so necessary to talk, to do the training and the correction. Otherwise, what are you disciplining the kid for? You're just teaching them to fight. They need to understand what's going on before there is the pain. But the spanking is so absolutely so necessary because of the medians and it's over. But if you love the child, I forgot my point.
If you love them, you're going to discipline them.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And because that's it. Because I have seen parents that when a child is misbehaving, they just pick them up and hold them. I want to spank them.
The parent. There's a lot of parents I would like to spank.
You gotta be careful these days with disciplining your child like that, corporal punishment in public anymore, because they'll
Right.
call CPS on you.
Yep, they will. Your own kids will call CPS on you. Yeah,
My friend had it happen to her.
yeah. You know what? The first time, yeah, I was going to say the first time, Tiffany was the only one that was really influenced by the system in that she came home and said, you know, if you guys don't treat me good, I can call CPS. And we told her, honey, when you're ready to call, you let us know. We'll look up the number for you. You can call them, and when they come get you, they're going to haul you off to some stranger's home, and that's where you'll live the rest of your life. We never had to make that phone call. Yeah, yeah. But the society is against us, y'all. It really is. Kids are being trained and taught that they have all the rights and the parents have none. Now, yes, you do have to be more careful in public than what you used to have to be. But doesn't mean that you still don't discipline. It just means you're smarter at how you discipline and when you discipline. So when Ben was 3, we walked into a Kmart, and he sees the little horse on the outside, you know, and he wants to ride. He wants to ride, and I said, no, maybe if you're good while we're in the store. He throws a royal fit right there. Well, see, my nature would be just to pick him up and wallop him right there, but I'm in public, so what do? I take him back to the car. Didn't say one word to him. I just picked him up, took him back to the car, walloped him good, and when his tears went from to just tears, then I said, now, we're going to go back in there, and we're not going to have this again. Got it? I mean, this is a 3-year-old. For the next 6 months, every time we'd go by those horses, he would longingly look away. Yeah, but it got his attention. But you have to be wise, okay? Because you will get, they have a tendency to want to go after good parents, and the parents who really need to be investigated, they ignore. Go figure how that happens. All right, yes?
How old normally does spanking start? When do they know that that is what that is?
Okay, that's a good question. And there is no set age. Our oldest daughter said, I am never going to spank my children. Never. I'm never going to spank my children. Bailey was 6 months old. Tricia calls me one day and she said, Mom, is it too early to start spanking her? 6 months. Yes, how old was he when you guys first spanked him? 3 months? That might have been too early. No.
2 or 3, whenever he was getting potty trained. And he was stopped peeing in his diaper, and he would sometimes poop in the toilet, and he would sometimes poop on the carpet. And
I think everybody can relate to that.
this was going on for a couple of months, and we kept working with him, and sometimes he would still poop on the carpet. And I spanked him one time, he never did it again.
So you got his attention. Yeah. And that's one of those deals where, back to the how old do they have to be? I think about the time that they're crawling, along about the time that they're throwing fits, I think is a good time to start getting their attention. Now, you don't pick them up and, give them 15 swats like that. But, like for instance, when they're crawling and they go towards something that they're not supposed to, like the electric cords, that's when you go over there and you take their hand away from it the first couple of times and say, no. And then when they keep crawling to that, then the next couple of times you may slap their hand, and you get it to increase, and they have to feel it. They really do have to feel it. Nothing makes a child more aggravated or irritated than when you powder their bottoms, because they know it's a big joke.
You're just
Yeah,
inconveniencing them.
yeah, all you did, and you just irritated them, okay? So they need to feel it, okay? So the first couple times it's a slap on the hand, and then it's a pick up and maybe a slap across the, the little bare part of the leg or something. A diaper doesn't do a thing to getting their attention. But just, so once they're able to understand and go after something, they're old enough to understand you can't go after that.
Hey, babe, I think there's a big difference too between a holy, righteous fear that godly discipline brings than abusive fear.
Yes.
And the world thinks spanking is an abusive fear. It can be if it's not done in love and in the balance of proper authority.
Okay, did that kind of answer your question? Okay, and as they get a little older, when they're running around as a toddler, something that parents do all the time is we underestimate our children. That 6-month-old knows exactly what you're saying most of the time. That 1-year-old for sure knows what you're saying. That 2-year-old, when you say things like, "Oh, he's just acting bashful," he hears that. He hears that. Or when you say things like, "Yeah, we've tried to discipline that, but it doesn't work." He just, on the inside, he's going, "One for me." Yeah, they are so smart. We underestimate these little people all the time. They are so smart at figuring out their parents. Anybody in here, we did not have to teach our children to cry to get our attention, did we? When they need something from the get-go, they knew to cry. When they're 2, they still know what gets your attention. If stomping their feet gets your attention, if crying gets your attention, whatever it takes, they know. They know how to get your attention. Kids can outlast us if we're not real careful. You ever felt like, any mother can relate to this, you ever felt like there are some days at the end of the day, Joel would come home and I'd say, "All I felt like I got done was spanking today. I spanked all day long." Well, does that mean I was doing it wrong? No, it meant I had some stubborn kids who if I backed down, they won. You can't have that. The first time they've won, you have lost big time. Regaining that respect is way difficult. Way difficult.
If a husband's in the room and his wife speaks 2 or 3 times to a kid,
Twice to a child.
I tell you what, the dad ought to be whooped for not stepping up, because you teach disrespect, and then that child will disrespect their spouse. You cannot teach respect if you don't back each other up immediately in discipline.
And it's amazing how dads they can say something the very same way a mom says it, but all of a sudden there's the fear of God in the room. You know what? I think it's the size. I think it's a God-given innateness that we have. We are just programmed to respect the head of the home.
And like that won't cause that.
Go ahead,
That
Lisa.
won't cause a problem. Like, if you're trying to tell him something and you say it 2 or 3 times, and then Joel says something, he's not going to say, "Well, I don't have to listen to Mom, Dad's going to tell me what to do." Correct.
Yeah, well, that's because Dad needs to do it the right way. When I say, "Ben, put that down," and he doesn't do it, then Dad steps up and says, "What did your mom just tell you?" So he didn't take his authority and re-instruct the child. He backed my authority. He had backed my authority. Yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, most dads are hard of hearing. That selective hearing, it goes everywhere. It isn't just us women they're not paying attention to, it's the kids. And part of it, men excuse it. I'm sorry, I'm talking about them as if they're not in the room. Men excuse it because they've worked hard all day. They come home and they're just tired. Excuse me, dads, but moms have worked hard all day with those little monsters you helped bring into the world. You know? And so, Dad, you need to step up. And the cool thing is that if Dad just does it occasionally when needed at the right time, yeah, and there's so much more peace in the home. And it doesn't matter whether it's a stepdad or a biological dad. God has called you to be the head of that home. So when you're the father, you might not have been the biological father, but you're there because God said you're the head of this home. We had a couple children that were being raised by a stepdad, and they came in, mom brought them in for counseling because they refused. They did not want the stepdad telling them what to do. And so then I said to the stepdad, I said, the only thing you can do is step up and take your rightful authority in that home. You may not be their father, so you may not get to discipline them because you're their father, but you can discipline them because you're the head of this home, and they're living in your home. And when he used that on them, guess what? They didn't have any problems after that.
I have a question about the same exact, okay, so my sister-in-law, step-sister, she had 2 kids by her first husband, and then she has another kid by her current husband. He has no problem telling the boys what to do, but her ex-husband tells him, you're not allowed to spank or discipline my children. So every time we're up there, they're unruly, they don't listen, or they're rough with each other, and it just feels like it's a yelling fest.
So the only thing that can happen in that situation is to tell her to call me, and I'll tell her what to do. Okay, no. In a situation like that, and that's not an easy one to navigate. That's why I said divorce, nobody wins. Nobody wins, okay? But in a situation like that, that's when the mama of those 2 boys has to step up to that ex and say, listen, bucko, you left the home or you abandoned us, so you lost your right. And while they're in this home, they will be disciplined by the head of this home. Now, if you have a problem with that, take it up with the legal authorities. Let's see where the ball ends. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. At some point, you got to call their bluff, because that's really what it is. And it's usually dads who feel like deadbeat dads. They feel like they feel guilty, so they want to hang on to their parental authority. Yes. Jason, was that your question or hers?
She's been typically just
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt.
Okay, go.
Okay, there's a specific one as far as spanking that really
Bothers you.
bothers me. Is whenever I say, like, whenever one of the kids hits the other kid, and then I tell them, like, don't hit your sibling, whatever. And do I spank them? Because is it the same thing? Is me spanking my child?
Okay. Are you hitting your child?
Yes.
No.
What is a hit?
What is a hit? That's what happens in a barroom fight.
That's a hit.
Yeah. Yeah,
Straight up.
that's a punch, or you hit. You hit or you slap in a bar room, okay? As a parent, you discipline by spanking, okay? And society would like to tell us that it's different. How dare you tell them they can't hit and then you hit them? No, I didn't hit my children ever. I never hit my children. But man, did I wallop them good with the rod of correction. And there's a big difference, and most of it is in attitude. Okay, does that make sense?
Kids will fight and hit because of their
'Cause they're kids.
immaturity and their strife. But when a parent corrects or brings discipline or spanking, it's out of love, it is controlled, it is measured, it's for a purpose.
It's not meant to
We are demanding
Yeah.
behavior and attitude.
Can you give an example of how a spanking would look in that way with love? Like you've told me before, when you immediately, you spank them, then you come back and you talk, like tell them, this is why you were being disciplined. and
Right,
something like that.
right. When something happens like that, probably a good way to handle it is the children are fighting, Chris and
No,
and
it's not
Claire.
the boy, it's Claire. She's
Claire.
mean. She was yesterday, she was
Oh, that's an easy one. You can just grab a hold of both of her wrists and say, listen, young lady, but yeah. Okay, so they're punching and fighting it, and so then that's when you go and you put them down in their corners and you will say, okay, now you're both getting a spanking, and this is why you're getting a spanking, is because we don't fight like that in this house, and so now you're going to get a discipline. And then that's when you take the oldest one and you wallop him good, and then you wallop her good, or whoever started it. Maybe the boys didn't do anything. Maybe she's just punching on the boys. Yeah. That's it. That's it. And there should be very little explaining. Here's a rule with discipline. Up until they're 2 years old, there should be very little conversation when it comes to discipline. Like, for instance, the toddler that's going over to unplug the lights or whatever. That's when you go and you take their hand away and say, no. Don't explain to them how electricity could light him up like a Christmas tree. How you could burn down the whole house. Does a 2-year-old even understand that? So what are you doing? You're wasting your time, and they're looking at you like you're dumb. Because you are. Oh, oops. Because you can't reason with a 2-year-old that way, because a 2-year-old has no history of what electricity can do. Okay, so you're wasting your time. All you're teaching them is absolute obedience. For the first couple years of their life, all it has to be is absolute obedience. I said no, therefore you'll do it my way. I'm the boss, you will do it my way. Easy as that. Then as they get a little bit older, 4 or 5 years old, you still don't explain electricity to them because they're playing with the outlet. You just say to them, no, that's dangerous. And then you give them the discipline because they've been told not to do that before. Okay? So to reason with them is silly. All you're going to do is, if you reason with your children when you're disciplining them, is you're going to teach them to be good lawyers. And it'll come back to bite you when they're 13 and they want to argue every point with you. Okay, so that's when you teach them absolute obedience at first. Absolute obedience. If you don't teach your child absolute obedience, it could be detrimental to them. It could be fatal to them. I'll use the illustration that I'm going to use, but I'm going to use a puppy dog instead of a child. Okay? You have a puppy dog that you're trying to teach to stay out of the road. So you say to that dog, stop. The dog gets out toward the edge of the road and you holler, stop, to the dog. And he turns around and he comes back. But let's say your dog is not learning very well. And so the dog is going for the road and you see a car coming. This would not be a good time to find out whether or not your dog is obedient. This would not be a good time to find out if your dog is a runner, because what will happen is splat. That's what happens with children. When you teach a 2-year-old absolute obedience and that 2-year-old is running for the street and you see a car coming, you can holler to him, Junior, stop! And if he has learned absolute obedience, you don't have to tell him. You don't have time to tell him that there's a car coming. You don't have time to tell him he's going to get run over by a car. That's when absolute obedience is absolutely necessary. No explanation needed, just absolutely obey. If you start them out like that, it's like Raju the elephant. When they get older and you say to them, no, we're not going to do that. They get to be 13. Then by that time you can give them the right to talk, not back, but to discuss the thing. Say, no, you're not going to hang out with that girl because. Or you could say, you're not going to go hang out with that family. And the first thing they'll say is, but why? Okay? In real simple terms, I'm going to tell you why. Because that's a totally ungodly family. I don't like the things you'll learn when you're with them. Period. Not long discussions, not long involved arguments with them. Just no, this is why. We've had to do that with our kids too. Is to tell them, no, you can't be friends with those anymore.
So what if, say, your teenager
Mm-hmm.
is, you give them chores because you're teaching them life skills.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're constantly complaining about said chores and how no one else does those said chores.
Uh-huh.
Because the 7-year-old doesn't know how to do them the right way. What do you do in that instance? Because she complains, she argues.
Mm-hmm. Yes, okay, did you catch that, what she was asking? Okay, so you have different age groups in a home. How do you make it fair? How do you make it fair so that one is not complaining? I have to do all the work. Okay, well, first of all, that's when you explain to your children, okay, look, this morning, Saturday morning, we're going to do our chores. Saturday morning at our house meant that my 3 kids, we got together on Saturday morning. This is what we have to get done today. And when we get this done, then we can go play. We can go do thus or thus. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. And I always sat them down and I said, now we're going to divvy it up. You're going to do this, this, and this. And you're going to do, and gave them their chores. And there were a few times when Ben would say, but how come I'm doing more than them? Well, that's when you compliment them. And you say, honey, that's because you're so much older than them. You got this figured out, and I can trust you to do it, and I don't have to constantly watch you. Turn it into a positive. Make them feel like you're letting them do it because it's like a reward.
Okay, but the thing is, we do reward her. We don't give her an allowance.
Uh-huh.
But
Oh, I'm against allowance. Ask me about that.
we basically give her, not anything she asks for,
Mhm.
but if she's needing something,
Mhm.
we will buy it for her. Like,
Mhm.
she wanted to play golf, $400 golf clubs.
Mhm.
If she wasn't gonna listen or didn't do her chores like she was supposed to,
Mhm.
she couldn't play golf.
Mhm.
So,
So did you?
after she got the golf clubs,
I was going to say, so did the
Different story.
golf clubs end up in your closet a lot?
no, she's playing golf, but
Uh-huh.
it's just,
Well, that's a great motivator. You just gave her the parameters for that. When she complains Saturday about doing her chores, say, okay, baby girl, go get that golf set. Get your golf clubs, bring them, take them to my closet, and when you stop grumbling and complaining about what you have to do in here, you can have them back. Yeah. Spanking is not the only way to discipline a child. As they get a little older, now it's the smartest way when they're young, and the Bible really had it. You think God had a good plan? Yeah, he did. The reason why spanking works so well when they're little is because it's quick, it's over with quickly, and then you can move on. So you spank a child and then you wait a few minutes. Don't spank a child and then hug on them.
it's confusing.
Yeah, it is confusing to them if you do that. You spank a child, discipline a child, and then you tell them, now go on and play, or go on and do what you're supposed to be doing. And then a few moments later, that's when you reaffirm to them, everything's fine, we're all good, the punishment has been dealt, you took it well, and now we're all cool again. Yes, Lisa?
My sister-in-law and her husband, they have to play boy as well, and they're 3.
Mhm.
And, like, if my nephew, if he does something, he gets in trouble, whatever, his dad will spank him or his mom will spank him. And then as soon as they're done, it's now, mommy is sorry, but you have to listen. If you start listening, mommy won't have to. So you can listen, but mommy still loves you, mommy loves you, you know, sorry, just try to listen.
Okay.
Do the whole sorry thing?
No. What are we sorry about? We're sorry about obeying God. Because who tells us to discipline a child? God. Who tells us to punish children? God. Why would we be sorry?
Because I feel like they can play off on your conscience that
Yeah, they most certainly can. You're going to teach those children to be great manipulators, emotional manipulators. Yeah, never a good idea. There are times and reasons when and why parents should apologize. They're few and far between, and they're certainly not for disciplining a child.
Like when you let that anger get the best of
Yeah.
you and you're spanking sin and yeah.
If you discipline them out of anger, then there might be a time, but not right away. Not right away. There may be a time when you need to say, you know what, I might have done that a little prematurely. There have been times when I have had to say to my kids, or even the school students once in a while, I've had to say, you know what, I might have dished out discipline before I had all the facts. And I'm sorry I didn't get all the facts first. Big difference. I didn't say I'm sorry because I disciplined you. It's just I probably should have gotten all the facts first. Okay, so there are good things to say I'm sorry. about, but never for disciplining them. A point was brought up too, when you discipline them out of anger. I've heard parents say, well, I didn't discipline them because I was angry. Okay, so what is the problem there? I have never disciplined my children where I weren't angry at them. They just broke a rule. They just did something they were told repeatedly not to do. I'm a little upset about them. There's nothing wrong with being angry. What's the scripture tell us? Be angry. It doesn't say don't be angry. It says be angry and sin not.
So what's the difference between an angry spanking and?
Okay, it's when the anger, when my own personal anger takes over and I discipline them out of anger that I'm not controlling. It's an uncontrolled anger on my part. Then I blew it.
Or you say words that are ugly.
Yeah, there's never, yeah. Yeah. How can I tell the difference? Oh, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference when you're angry and you got out of control.
I felt guilty immediately.
Yeah, you do. You do feel guilty immediately. Well, and part of that is conditioning. See, I was taught, at least I thought I was taught as a good little Baptist girl, that it was godly people were never angry people. And you know, I believed that clear up until after we got married. And I went to a counselor, and I was talking about my anger. It's like all of a sudden I just find myself getting angry, and I don't know where it's coming from. And this counselor said, so? I thought he'd be shocked. I mean, he was a Christian guy. In fact, we knew each other in the same church and stuff, you know, and so I thought he'd be shocked that I confessed I was an angry person. He wasn't the least bit shocked, and he said, so? And I said, but I'm not supposed to be angry, I'm a Christian. And he said, where did you learn that? And I said, from our church. And he said, oh, that's right, that's what they tried to teach us. And then he quoted the scripture for me. And he said, where does it say don't be angry? It says be angry and sin not, which means my anger cannot be out of control or in a rage. And then I realized a lot of my anger was because of injustice. I felt like people weren't listening to me, you know, wasn't always listening to me, not pointing fingers or anything. But I found out that, you know, it was because I didn't feel like I was being listened to that I was getting more angry and more angry. And the counselor pointed this out. He said, you have every right to be angry. He's not paying attention to you.
And I felt self-righteous because I didn't show any anger.
Yeah, he was the most controlled individual. He never gets angry. Oh, slap him. No.
I just want to know what scripture is that, be angry and sin not?
I don't know.
Ephesians chapter 4.
I was going to say, I don't know addresses as quickly as he does. That's right. I can find it for you. Do I know it right off the top of my head? No. Okay, so be angry and sin not. So there's a difference in being angry and there's a difference in being out of control.
Jesus made a whip out of cords, went into the temple, drove people out, tipped over the cords, chased out the money changers and the animals. Think he was angry?
Think he looked angry?
But it was a righteous anger, not a self-centered, out of control anger.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference.
Yeah, but to the onlooker or to the people whose tables got turned over, what was their assumption? Ooh, he was out of control. It's crazy man. Yeah. No, he wasn't out of control. He knew exactly what he was doing and he knew why he was doing it.
When God says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay, that is a righteous
Anger.
executing judgment in a righteous way where people have been warned and warned. And that's what we do with our children. We teach, we warn, and then it's time for an execution of discipline.
Not executing them.
Yes, they need to be paid. Otherwise, there's no fear of breaking rules. If there's no fear of jumping out of airplanes, let's all do it. If there's no fear for disobedience, then let's all do it.
And that's what we have in society today. We have a total generation that have been undisciplined. They have no respect for authority anywhere. They are totally out of control. And when we were talking about the anger, a lot of times we are taught things that are not true. You know, wherever it came from. I don't believe my church purposely mistaught that. Might have been just purely my conception, my understanding. I don't know. But I don't think they purposely taught me a mistruth. But I did learn it, and I really believed it. until I found out, no, I have every right. I am justified to be angry, but I can't let it get out of control, and I can't let it consume me. Okay, make sense? All right, so when parents say, I didn't spank them because I was out of control, well, then get your act together, mom and dad, because they need immediate discipline. Our founding fathers of our country did something so smart because it was based on a godly principle. What did they believe when they were setting up our Constitution? That everybody that was convicted of something had the right to a speedy trial. Our children have the right to speedy correction. Why? Because here's what happens. Tommy, 4-year-old. Tommy has misbehaved. He has been a little holy terror all day long. He's out of control. So mom says to him, when your dad gets home, you're going to get the spanking of your life. What are we just going to teach Tommy?
Gives them permission to act bad all day long.
He gets to be bad until daddy gets home? Or he's hoping that mom will forget to tell dad.
I've done that.
Yeah, we've all been there. Yeah. Or by the time dad gets home, little Tommy has been playing his behavior over and over and over till he has totally justified himself. And who's the bad guy in his little scenario? Mommy. Mommy just doesn't understand. Mommy's just mean. And so all day long he's had this chance to build a case against you, Mom. Yeah. Same way, I don't like timeout, and I don't like sending a child to a corner. Yeah, you send them to the corner, and they may have their face looking at that corner, but the whole time they're there. You really think they're thinking about what they did and how they should change it the next time? No, they're thinking about how they're going to get even with mom. Why mom is the bad person here. You know, that's why I think spanking is the smartest way to deal with small children. Tell them what they did wrong, wallop them, send them on their way. It's done, paid for, they've learned something hopefully, and the day goes on. You had a question?
So, like Fenric, he
Oh, let's not give names. Somebody you know. Yeah.
there's this child I know. So he actually sometimes asks for spankings when I threaten to take the TV away.
He would rather have a spanking.
Yeah.
Huh? Smart kid.
And,
Got one of those.
and do I give him the spanking or do I give him the one that I know works?
How hard do you spank him?
Pretty darn hard.
He has a tough behind, huh? Yeah. He has a tough behind.
Yeah.
He just doesn't care, yeah. And there are those kids that would rather have the spanking because they know what we parents forget. It's done, over with, and we get to move on. So yeah, in his case, I'd probably take the TV away from him.
So, kind of hopping on Andres,
Mhm.
Lily, she's the only one that gives me this issues. I'll tell her, you're gonna eat what I made,
Uh-huh.
or you will go to bed hungry, and
Uh-huh.
eat it all.
Oh, Joel, help. Is that
bad?
can you withhold food from a kid? What do y'all think?
Yes.
Most certainly.
Okay, but I know, but sometimes she'll come back with the comment of, I'd rather stay here.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Okay, fine. That's your choice, hon. I gave you that
just
choice.
making sure
Yeah,
that I'm
yeah.
not just.
Now, there are some people out there who believe you dare not withhold food from a kid. Okay, 2 weeks of no food might be excessive, okay? Maybe a full day of no food might be excessive, okay? A meal, have you seen the American kids? They could go a few days without food and be all right.
That's my mom getting in
So
grandma both
what do you do when you've got a child that's so stubborn that they actually just starve themselves?
Is that what she's doing? No.
That's what she used to do.
Ah, stubborn that way, huh? Is one of the kids taken after her?
Pretty much all of them, yeah.
All of them? Yeah. I have the opinion this way. Kids will quit doing that little hunger strike once they get hungry enough. Now, should they go beyond a reasonable amount? Yes, that's where the reasonable adult has to step in and say, okay, enough is enough.
Especially if you make food that they really like.
We don't
Yeah.
do that.
Oh, well, if you do make food that they really like, they might be tempted to change their attitude faster.
Well, no, we make food that's good for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Rebecca?
It can be really challenging when they're on medication.
Yes.
It takes their appetite, and then when they're so underweight that the doctor's concerned.
Yes. In a situation like that, no, food strikes are not good. You can't take the food away from them. Yes, we all understand there are certain situations. This is not just a blanket statement. Yes, so we do have to be mindful of our individual child and what their needs are.
And it makes it even.
Yes, it does. It does.
What if you have like contradicting grandparents that are kind of like hypocritical when it comes to your own parenting?
You mean you have parents who do not back your parenting?
Yes, they will.
Imagine
go
that.
underneath what I'm saying or go around what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
And then it like contradicts what I'm trying to teach my kids. And then when we get home, they're showing me attitude or not listening to me because they're like, he's your dad or she's your mom. You have to listen to them. That's what.
That's Lily.
It's like, that's your dad. You have to do
Lily
this.
should become an attorney.
With
Yeah.
that comment, I usually like, excuse me, I'm your mom.
She's not.
But the thing is, they will come at me and be like, she's right or I'm right.
Like I said, I'm a smart aleck, so I'll be.
Yeah.
Let me call Hannah real
It just
quick.
makes it harder. So what do I do in
Yes.
that situation when you have people contradiction?
Okay, couple things is that our parents, believe it or not, hate to see us spank our children. They hate to see us discipline our children. They hate to see us do any things that to our children that they did to us. Our parents were tough on us, some of us, and yet it just frustrates them to death if we discipline our children in front of them. Our kids used to go to Grandpa Ben and Mary's with us. Grandma would about have a meltdown if we spanked one of them. And so it kind of got to be this situation. Either we're going to have a scene every time we go to Grandma's, or we're going to have to do something. So we told the kids, all right, we're going to Grandma's for the next 2 days. Spankings may be on hold while we're at Grandma's, just because we don't want Grandma to have a heart attack. But we will keep tally of everything that you do while you're at Grandma's, and it will be disciplined as soon as we leave Grandma's. Yes, yes. And you know what? A few days later, they're hoping you forget. When you don't, trust me, the next time you say, when we go to Grandma's, it may be on hold for a couple days, but we will discipline you. One time we went to a store, and Tiffany was 4, and in the store she was misbehaving, and Joel said to her, when we get to the car, you are getting a spanking. So we get to the car, and we get halfway home, and she's in the back seat going, ha ha, Dad. And as soon as she did that, I thought, oh, you foolish little girl. She said, ha ha, Dad, you forgot to spank me. Anyone want to guess what he did? He pulled right over on the side of the road, and she got her spanking. Yeah, so when you do, put it on hold a little bit because of grandparents and whatever, but yeah, but if you're going to be at Grandma's a lot, then you have to say to Grandma, Grandma, do you want me to bring my kids to your house again? Then stop contradicting me.
But then they're disrespectful back to you and saying, I raised you and did this and just.
Yeah, I learned from your mistakes.
I'm trying to do a better job.
I'm taught to respect your elders, but then it's like,
She needs counsel.
Well, yeah.
break down.
Needs a little extra.
I love the honesty in this corner over here. And the problem is we know these players, so we have to be careful too what we say. Yeah, it's really tough navigating the grandparent thing. And there are certain, as a grandparent, I used to tell my kids this all the time. Listen, when they're at Grandma's house, Grandma has her rules. Now, I did not deliberately violate any of my girls' standards that they had for their kids. Never. I would never do that on purpose. But when it comes to silly little things or little rules, Grandma's house rules go with Grandma's, And that pretty much worked. But not every grandparent, can I say it this way? Not every grandparent is as smart as I was. No, I just knew. I knew that it was good for them to be disciplined, and they needed to be disciplined at my house, And so I pretty much backed because my kids were raised under the same rules they were raising the grandkids, so we didn't have a problem with divided rules, by and large. Sometimes eating habits were a little different at Grandma's house.
Ms. Rose, can I just share like just a quick example of how I kind of navigated those boundaries with my mom?
And that's hard, because you live next door to each other.
So if they would go over there and Seth or even Nate now, if they were having like a behavior issue or I was trying to correct something, I would always tell my mom ahead of time, look, this is what we're dealing with and this is how we are correcting it. Would you please reaffirm that? And she would say, okay, but if I don't tell her, she don't know. I have to tell her, this is what I'm expecting of them. Would you please? And if not, call me, I'll come get them.
And that's a good alternative.
And she would, and it made her feel good knowing that she didn't have to do that for me. That's my job. I will come get them if they won't behave.
Yeah.
Because this is what we're trying to correct.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, that makes, that's great. Did you all catch that back there?
That's what I try to do.
Okay, yes, Morgan?
So I feel like it's super hard to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't depend on my parents, not throwing them under the bus, but I can't. When I ask for help, it's like I'm pulling teeth. For instance, this kid I know had a doctor's appointment on Friday, and I was already in town with another kid I know at the doctor, and I had asked this woman if she could go get the kid I know from school and bring her to town. And it was just, it was so hard to get her to do it, and she just said she was faking it, there was nothing wrong with her, it had pertained to her. She just made me feel bad that my kid has these issues, and she doesn't understand, because it's not her kid. And so anytime I'm trying to explain something to her, she tells me I'm giving her a pity party, or I'm letting her manipulate me, but I know how she feels and how, I know how it looks, and so for her to belittle those things, it just, it
Yeah.
makes it hard. And then she
It is-
gave her a hard time on the way to town after she picked her up. It just, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just-
And that's a tough call
it-
to make.
it makes me wanna keep
Especially when your parents are the only ones you have as a backup
Yeah.
to babysit and stuff. I never had that problem because I lived 12 hours away from my mom and 12 hours away from his mom and dad for a big portion of the time. And so I never had parents that I had to share my kids with. So we shared in the church. We had 5 or 6 other moms we all had little kids, and we shared each other's kids. I would watch their kids, they would watch my kids, huh?
I said, what you're saying is I need more land.
Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, it's good. This is why the church family a lot of times is more important than our own family, because of those sort of things. At least you parents that are here hopefully are buying everything I'm saying, right? Because you know I'm right. Right? All right. Yeah. And so, all but the elephant thing, yeah. Don't put a dog chain on the kids' legs. That's not what I was saying. That's what he was going to go home and do. On their neck. No. Rebecca.
You do bring up a point that is actually something we've been struggling with. We have 2 kids who have chronic illness. One is growing up in the house, but the other, she has been diagnosed with autoimmune disorder, so we know it is a thing. And initially, we just always thought she's trying to get out of stuff. Nowadays, I know there are days when she really does feel like crap. I also know she is probably using that.
If she's a smart kid, she will use it. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that it isn't legit for the most part. Yeah.
And I try to put my foot down and then wind up with her on the floor miserable because she was legit.
Or has
Yeah.
to call us from school because she threw up from
Yeah.
the meds that they were giving. That's why we're not giving
Yeah.
her anymore.
You're not gonna
Yeah.
have a perfect exercise of discipline anywhere in this world. It'll never happen. Get used to it. So that's why the humility, that's why the transparency, the honesty, that's why we have conversations like this. And it's a learning. we told our kids, I told the kids, listen, sometimes dad is wrong, but I'm still the dad, and mom's still the mom. And there's only one perfect parent, he's in heaven.
And I know for a fact, we're screwed up. A lot.
Well, we all have.
Yeah.
We all have.
I wish we could have done things different with my son because I can see where he has some jobs that will be ideal for him, but he may never function outside the home because of the combination of, yes, we've allowed him to try to make his own way with how he's not feeling well.
Mhm.
And I don't want to see my daughter go that same route.
Mhm.
But yeah, she's a teenager now, and it's a lot harder. When she was
Especially mixed in with those hormones.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
until age 6, I was home with her, but then we're both working, and
Mhm.
things kind of went out of control.
Yeah. Here's something that every parent should be relieved to hear. God did not design you to be perfect. He did call you to be the parents of these children that He gave us. And we are perfect for them because God doesn't make mistakes. But He never expects us to be perfect. And here's why. If I were the perfect parent and could take care of every one of my kids' needs emotionally, spiritually, financially, health-wise, every way, if I could take care of every one of their needs, they would never need God. And God's going to make sure that there are areas where we're going to blow it. He doesn't have to make sure, He just knows we're human. There are areas where we're going to blow it. But He also knows that He is the perfect father. He is the perfect parent. And that if we teach our kids nothing else, if you teach your kids nothing else, teach them to obey and respect authority, and teach them to have a relationship with God. Teach them to have a relationship with Jesus, because then when they go through struggles, all of us came out of dysfunctional homes. That term didn't even become popular until I was an adult. I didn't know I was raised in a dysfunctional home until I went to counseling classes and learned to be a counselor. And it's like, oh, wow, I was raised in a dysfunctional home. Wow, didn't know that, because they didn't have a term for it back then. We were all raised in dysfunction. But because I was raised in dysfunction doesn't mean that I get to be dysfunctional. It means that I found I need God. And so if we teach our kids that no matter what their lack is in life, whether it be them personally or something we did to them or didn't do for them, or society does or doesn't do for them, their lacks can always be filled by their relationship with God. So if we do nothing else, do those two things to the very best of our ability. Teach them to obey and respect authority, and teach them to have a relationship with Jesus. And you have given them all the tools they will need to succeed in life. Doesn't that make you feel relieved?
It does, because it's a lot of pressure.
There is a lot of...
Those things sound plausible.
Yes, those things are doable. Yeah. And everything else is things that we try. We try. When we're made aware of something that we should do better, a smart person would do it better, right? Instead of just keep stumbling along. I don't want to raise my kids in the same dysfunction. I think that is our dinner call. That was pretty clever. That was pretty clever. Our kids at school know that ring. They go, oh, pastor's calling you. Yeah. Okay, guess what, guys? We're going to go eat. Y'all ready? We have pizza and a really nice salad bar. Okay? So, anyhow, so we're going to go back there. It'll take us a half a minute to get everything together. So let's try to eat within half an hour. We usually do a seminar like this for like 6 or 8 hours. We're trying to do it in 3.5. I don't know how much we're going to get done tonight, but we're going to give our best at it, okay? All right, let's go eat.
Lord bless our